Hello, you beautiful people. So today I wanted to do something a little different on the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a recap of all the games that were played today and how that sort of impacts from an NBA perspective and from a fantasy perspective. So if you guys enjoy this, feel free to drop a like on the video and subscribe so I know to keep making more content like this. But yeah, the games that I watched closely today were the Suns versus the Celtics, the Lakers versus the Mavericks, and the 76ers versus the Bucks. So I'll just go ahead and talk about those games in a bit of detail, my thoughts, my opinions on how the games went, and also I'll look at maybe some potential streaming options over there for your playoffs this week. And then we'll look at the Pelicans versus the Magic, Pistons versus Spurs, Hornets versus Bulls. But with that being said, let's just get right into it. So the first game I want to talk about obviously is going to be the Celtics versus the Suns. And I don't like doing this because I hate when people do this. They just sort of set themselves up to be right no matter what. And I know I'm wrong a lot too, but I remember I put Kemba Walker in a buy low video sort of close to the start of the season, and I got a lot of people in the comments giving me shit saying he wasn't a buy low player, and I just want to say to those people, lick my nuts. Kemba played literally so good today. He carried the Celtics. He was the only one really playing well. Another thing about Kemba I think is underrated. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not a good defender, but the amount of fast breaks he stops like by himself is kind of crazy. Like he's sort of got the Kyle Lowry ability where they're just so scared of getting a charge drawn on them that the players sort of mess up at like a 2-on-1 fast break. But yeah, I mean, he stops fast breaks by himself. Tatum sold. I'm sorry if you have Tatum on your fantasy team. The thing with Tatum is that when he has a bad game, like he really has a bad game. Like he shoots like 2 for 16, and that's just not going to get it done for you. Tatum is for the most part consistent, but these bad games really hurt, especially this time of year. And yeah, important things to note from this game: Jaylen Brown was out. Marcus Smart did Marcus Smart things. Nothing particularly stood out for fantasy. And honestly, I don't really see any good waiver options on the Celtics right now. I don't think there's anyone that you can really pick up for a streaming option. And then one last thing I wanted to talk about is that at the end of the game, if anyone was watching, Tristan Thompson called Torrey Craig trash. I didn't know two bums could call each other trash, but it really happened. I don't think Tristan Thompson has the right to be calling anyone trash, but anyway. If we move on to the Suns, DeAndre Ayton was soft like Sharman as usual. Booker had a weird game. He's kind of similar to Tatum. But the thing with Booker is even when he shoots decently sometimes, just because he doesn't have too many peripheral stats, it really doesn't help for fantasy. So he kind of sold you guys out as well today. And then Chris Paul, man, he's been on a fucking tear. He's been unreal this past week. And it's a really great time of year for it, just going into fantasy playoffs. So hopefully you can keep that up if you have him on your team. And then in terms of streaming options, I'm not really seeing any great ones on the Suns either. The starters are kind of eating up minutes on that roster. So there's probably no streamers on the Suns, but we'll just go ahead and get into the next game, which was the Bucks versus the 76ers. So yeah, I didn't really watch this game actually that closely because I was sort of like flipping between the Celtics game and this game. And this game was pretty much over in the first quarter. The Bucks were just absolutely killing them. The only note I took is that Bryn Forbes is bad. And I'm going to stand by that. I really don't like Bryn Forbes. I don't think he offers the Bucks a lot of value. Nothing against Bryn Forbes. I'm sorry. I just don't think you're that great of an NBA player. And then if we look at the Sixers, how they played today, Embiid was sort of having a rough night shooting. He really was struggling to get going early on. And then, of course, Ben Simmons was out, so like the Sixers' backup guards got a lot of minutes. And that's the thing. I don't really know if there's any good streaming options on the Sixers either, honestly. I know I'm not really giving you guys a lot of streaming options right now, but they're sort of like game specific. I'm planning on making daily videos for you guys in terms of like daily streaming options now that my school's done and I have more time for YouTube, so stay tuned for that. Hope you guys will enjoy that. But anyway, going back, I mean, Shake Milton had an alright game. Tobias Harris is finally back healthy again, so that was really good if you have Tobias Harris on your lineup. But yeah, I just don't trust anyone on the Sixers to really be a good streaming option because they're mainly like backup point guards or shooting guards, and once Ben Simmons gets back into the lineup, there's not going to be as much ball handling available to them, so I wouldn't recommend them as like reliable options. But if Ben Simmons is out for another game, then I would recommend picking up someone like Shake Milton, maybe Seth Curry. Depends on the matchup, but they could definitely go off for a good game. And then from the Bucks side of things, I mean, Chris Middleton was on fire. Brook Lopez was playing well. Giannis, of course, always playing well. And then Bobby Portis had a really good game for the Bucks. And especially if you have him on your fantasy team, he has had a really weird week where he wasn't getting a lot of minutes. He was getting like 9 minutes, 13 minutes, which really wasn't used to like his usual 17 to 25 minutes a game for the Bucks. But I think it was sort of matchup specific. At least I think that was Bud's rationale behind the decision. So again, if you're in a league and you need someone to go off, Bobby Portis does have that potential, but that's the thing, is just some nights he's really good and some nights he's not so good for fantasy. So yeah, that was all I really took from the Bucks and the 76ers game. Next game we're going to talk about is the Pelicans and the Magic. Obviously, I didn't really watch this game because I have no interest in watching the Orlando Magic play anymore. But Ingram had a good game. Zion Williamson, of course, dominating. Lonzo Ball Really struggled with his shot, but he had 12 assists. So if you're in a category league, Lonzo Ball is a really good ad, especially if you need like not specifically scoring stats. I know Lonzo Ball, I mean, everyone pretty much knows his main value is sort of as a facilitator. And then Willie Hernan Gomez, I don't really consider him a valuable streaming option. I mean, he only got 17 minutes, but he put up some alright numbers, so we'll give him props where it's due. And then, yeah, from the Orlando Magic side of things, everybody knows they've been a gold mine for fantasy streamers. I'd really look at picking up someone like Cole Anthony. I know he didn't have that good of a game today, but he's been on a pretty decent stretch as of late. He's been pretty consistent. So, yeah, in terms of streaming options there, Cole Anthony, RJ Hampton. Got to give some love to Mo Bamba. I mean, he got 28 minutes today because Wendell Carter's out. So definitely something to monitor for like situation-wise. If Wendell Carter's ever sitting out games, Mo Bamba becomes like a must-stream player for that day because he always goes off for some big numbers. So I'll definitely put some more info on that in later videos. But for now, just as a rule of thumb, if you ever see Wendell Carter sitting up and you need a streamer, Mo Bamba's definitely a good place to look. Moving on to the next game, we got the Pistons versus the Spurs. And finally, Derek White, the Messiah, the Lord and Savior. He had a good game. This has been such a crazy week, man. Like, we got Ja Morant and Derek White both having good games. Makes me so proud because I've rostered both of them in like all of my leagues. I was really confident that they were going to be good fantasy players, and it's finally starting to pay off. So if we look at the Spurs, I mean, they were without DeJounte Murray, Patty Mills, and DeMar DeRozan. They were just kind of giving their starters the night off. And Derek White just went off. He had 26, 7, and 8. Went for 64 fantasy points in default settings. Jakob Poeltl had a really good game too. He stepped up. And then Keldon Johnson was playing as well, so that was good to see. And then from the Pistons side of things, I feel really bad if you have Jeremy Grant on your team. I just want to get that out there, or Plumlee, because the Pistons have just been resting players nonstop. Like this season, that's a big problem with this season. That's a whole other topic, but just the amount of games that players are resting, the amount of injuries, it's really ruining the season in terms of the regular season anyway. Like it's just not great for the league, I think, especially in terms of publicity, especially like when all your best players aren't playing. It's really not helping your rating, so Adam Silver's probably going to take a bit of heat for that. But if we get back on topic, Josh Jackson had a good game. I think could be a streaming option. He was a streaming option for a little bit. I put him in a short-term video quite a while back. And yeah, if he gets the minutes, he's capable of producing. I mean, he scored 29 points today. But I think Hamidou Diallo's kind of been messing with his production, even though like he's not getting as many minutes. And then Sadiq Bey didn't have a great game, but he got 32 minutes. That's something to look at. And then Beef Stew, or Isaiah Stewart if you're not in the Discord, he had a solid game. He's a really good rebounder. If you're in a category leagues and you need rebounds, I'd definitely look at Isaiah Stewart. But then again, this is sort of conditional. Like if Plumlee's playing, Beef Stew's value isn't that high. But if he's sitting out games, then I think Isaiah Stewart has a lot of potential to be a good streaming option. And then we move on to the Bulls versus the Hornets. And for the Bulls side of things, definitely some interesting things to take note of for fantasy. I mean, Vucevic had a really good game, of course. He's carrying that team. But I think the main person that you're going to want to watch out for is Kobe White. He's only rostered in 72% of leagues, and I fully understand that because he has been incredibly inconsistent. But as long as Zach LaVine's out, the Bulls really need someone to provide like a scoring punch, and Kobe White just sort of has the green light to just take as many dumb shots as he wants, even though he probably shouldn't. But yeah, if you, like on a night like tonight, he put up 39 fantasy points, so can't complain there. I'd definitely recommend streaming Kobe White for this week. I think he's a really good option to have if you need scoring, you need points. And then Thad Young had an alright game, but he only got 20 minutes of play time, so that's why I don't think he'd be too great of an option because it's hard to produce that great a level with that little playing time. But yeah, Satoransky had an alright game, but yeah, I think the main takeaway from this Bulls-Hornets game is that Kobe White is a must-stream for this week, as long as Zach LaVine remains out anyway. And then for the Hornets, just kind of a bad game all around for the entire team. The Scary Terry stretch ended. He only had 11 points in this one. Devontae Graham had 16, but of course it was inefficient because it's Devontae Graham. And then Miles Bridges, best fantasy stats on the team today, but again, didn't really matter. Team overall just didn't play well. But yeah, I still think Miles Bridges remains a solid streaming option. And then, of course, the last game of the day we're going to talk about is the Mavericks versus the Lakers. And first things first, I mean, we just saw, if you guys were watching, Kristaps Porzingis went out with an ankle injury, and he didn't return to the game. So hopefully everything's all right there. Didn't look too great. Just kind of tweaked it on the way down. And then similarly, like, Doncic looks kind of hurt as well. I mean, he's, on a side note, man, Doncic is so good, bro. Like, he is crazy good at basketball. It is insane to watch. He really just knows how to manipulate the game. And he's a really fun player to watch. But yeah, if I look at my notes that I made on this game, Rick needs to stop hoeing Brunson. I mean, Brunson has so much potential. He's crazy good. I just want a lot more minutes for Jalen Brunson, quite frankly. And then in light of the injuries to Tingus Pingus, like if he's going to miss extended time, and it looks like Luka's going to need a break too, the way he's like hobbling around on every second possession. I know the Mavericks really struggling for a playoff seed right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have to give Doncic and Tingus a game off or two. But even if just Tingus is out, if we're looking at streaming options, I'm looking at Finney Smith, Brunson, of course, and honestly Tim Hardaway Jr. because he's sort of like the de facto third guy behind Luka and Kristaps, and if one of them sits out, then it's just more shots for Tim Hardaway Jr. So you're kind of taking a big risk if you do stream him because Tim Hardaway Jr., it's either he's putting up 50 or he's going to shoot 1 for 17. Like, there's no in between with him. So yeah, that's definitely something to watch. Monitor the news on Kristaps' injury. Hopefully everything's okay, but if he does end up missing time, then you want to be able to capitalize on the streaming options. And then from the Lakers side of things, AD's back. He's definitely rusty. It's going to take some time to adjust, especially with the minutes restriction he's on. And then for a fantasy perspective, Schroeder had a big game. KCP and Harrell had good games. Drummond played well too. Schroeder and Drummond both had double-doubles. But yeah, I mean, the Lakers obviously just aren't the same team without LeBron and AD there with them. If we look at other players, I mean, Caldwell Pope hit like 7 threes tonight. I wouldn't expect that to continue. He was really just on a hot stretch today. And I don't think he's that viable of a streaming option as soon as AD gets back into the lineup because there's going to be a lot less shots. But, I mean, if you wanted to take a risk on Caldwell Pope this week, I think it could pay off just for a short-term option. Definitely not the worst ad in the world, but I think some of the guys that I've mentioned in previous waiver wire videos and videos that I'll have coming out tomorrow will be better options. So I definitely hold off on streaming Caldwell Pope. I sort of just talked myself out of that one. But whatever, it's late. And yeah, that's going to wrap up the first summary video. I might make this a series on the channel if you guys enjoy, so be sure to drop a comment, let me know what you think. And as always, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.